is Sarah Colborne from the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, which has had a very successful lobby of Parliament this week, in which campaigns, again, we work closely with PSC over a whole range of issues, and not least when the Israelis are bombing Gaza, as they do. And I guess this December there will be, on the 27th, protest at the Israeli embassy. Sarah will tell you about that, and you don't need me to tell you. So anyway, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Sarah. Palestine is something which I think for all of us is absolutely central to all the things and is part of our concern over the question of war in the Middle East. So please give a warm welcome to Sarah.
I'd like to first of all thank Stop War Coalition for inviting me to speak and for the work that we've done together with the Stop War Coalition on Palestine. I wanted to just make 5 brief points in terms of the building the international movement, which is the title of this plenary. The first point I wanted to make in terms of lessons that we've learned building the movement for solidarity on Palestine is recognise our strengths. It's crucial for us to know and to understand that we who fight for peace, justice, for freedom, represent the views of the majority of the population of the world. It's important for us to know that, for example, the latest BBC opinion poll showed that 72% of those polled in this country had a negative view of Israel. It's important to know that's because they've seen so many horrific images of what Israel's crimes have meant for Palestinians that they are not prepared to sit by and tolerate what is happening. That brings me on to the point 2 I want to make, which is recognise our weaknesses and develop struggles for dealing with them. One of our major weaknesses, I believe, is the fact that we deal with media bias all the time. There's a very strong pro-Israel lobby. The government obviously put a lot of pressure in terms of the stories that have come out. You'll all be aware of demonstrations you've been on, whether it's against war in Iraq, whether it's war in Afghanistan, whether it's against Israel's attacks, and you see no mention of it in the BBC. And the interesting thing is that this is partly because of our strength, which is we represent public opinion. Melanie Phillips, who doesn't normally get quoted in these sort of events, has acknowledged that Israel has lost the battle of public opinion, and so it's very critical for those representing the Israeli cause to win the battle of what gets promoted in the press. And so you have to challenge that, and what we've been doing is consistently complaining, and that's something that may seem like a drop in the ocean, but please, when you see coverage that is inaccurate, complain and chase it up. When you see events that you've participated in that aren't covered, equally challenge it, take it up. So that's the second point. Thirdly, expose the realities. We are particularly trying to expose the realities of Israeli racism, apartheid, occupation and siege. And I just wanted to mention 2 things very quickly here. Today is a day of rage against the Prawa plan. And this is a plan from the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli government, to ethnically cleanse up to 70,000 Palestinians from their homes in the Nakab and Negev. Again, this is not being reported by the BBC, but was reported in The Guardian, and I'm hoping that all of you have seen the letter signed by over 50 celebrities, including Peter Gabriel, Brian Eno, and this shows, again, that we have significant support for our cause right across the board. Secondly, I just wanted to mention Gaza. I think we have to make it very clear that it is unacceptable that children have to wade through sewage to go to school simply because Israel has laid such an intense siege upon 1.7 million people who are trapped in Gaza that there is not sufficient power, not sufficient fuel to power the power stations. That meant that the backup generator failed and sewage just flowed through the streets. It is not acceptable that people die in Gaza because they don't get the medicines they need because of the Israeli siege. It is not acceptable that the screw has been tightened even further on 1.7 million Palestinians because Egypt has closed the rapid border and the tunnels. Fourthly, the lesson I think is worth reflecting on is recognise where we've made a difference. I won't dwell on this, but obviously the vote on Syria was something that it took 10 years for the demonstration against the war in Iraq to filter through. But that was something where the movement made a difference. That wasn't just a few people, that were millions of people who came out on the streets, concretely made that difference. On Palestine, campaigns for boycott, divestment and sanctions are making a difference. When you expose companies that are profiting from Israel's crimes, whether it's G4S, whether it's Veolia, and you mobilise locally against those companies, you can win. You can win support, and you can win support for local councils not to give contracts to companies that are profiting from Israel's crimes. Finally, I just wanted to reflect on active solidarity and what that means. In terms of Palestine, it means acting on Palestinian demands. So it means very clearly basing what we're demanding on the fundamental principles of self-determination, liberation and return. It means that we don't just reflect on our historic responsibility, but we also take up our current responsibilities to change this government's policies. And that takes time. We all know that the battle against apartheid in South Africa took decades, but that battle was won. The battle on the Iraq War, as we saw, unfortunately didn't stop the attack on Iraq, but it did have an impact. And the final message I just wanted to send was, I'm often accused of being too angry, and we have a right to be angry. We have a right to be angry at what's happening. We have a right to be angry against injustice. We have a duty to be angry. But we actually need to make others angry as well, because that anger can be turned into action. And so I think that's the final message that I wanted to leave you with. And in terms of turning that anger into action, as Lindsay said, the 27th of December marks another anniversary, this time 5 years since Israel launched Operation Cast Lead, which was a war which killed over 1,400 Palestinians in Gaza. We're wanting people to carry out local activities on the 27th of December, and we're wanting as many of you as possible to come down on the 18th of January to protest outside the Israeli embassy. It's very important that we never forget. It's very important that we bring those responsible for those crimes to justice, and it's very important that we work together, build the broadest and the strongest alliance possible to deliver justice, to deliver liberation and a free Palestine. Thank you.